situation with the chickens has become untenable. We just can't have them hopping out of their enclosure all the time. The main problem is that they come in to the lower levels of the tomatoes, and the ones they can reach, they poke a hole in it, they peck a hole in it, and then that tomato is ruined. They don't eat it all, they just kind of peck at it, and then nobody else can eat the tomato. So we've been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth about whether just to keep them in their coop. I mean, we built the coop for them to stay in the coop for a long time. For 2 years, the chickens stayed in the coop all the time. But now that we've let them out and given them more space, it feels cruel to keep them in the coop all the time. So we're going to try something different. We're going to take down this flimsy bamboo stake and netting fence, and we're going to try to put in something a little sturdier. We were going to do an electric fence, but first of all, they're very expensive, and second of all, we couldn't find one to look at. I mean, it's funny, when I look at YouTube videos from all over the country, people talk about going to their local Tractor Supply and finding everything they need for their farm. We have one Tractor Supply. It's 45 minutes away in Brentwood, and they didn't have any electric netting. They had electric fencing for cattle, but they didn't have anything for what we were smaller scale. So what we ended up doing was buying some more T-posts and some very large, tall, what would you call that stuff, Tom? Fencing. It's like fencing. So we're going to replace this whole system with a sturdier system, and hopefully, and taller, and hopefully that'll keep the chickens more enclosed. So that's what we're going to work on today, out here in the hot sunshine. And hopefully then we can start eating the tomatoes we've been growing, rather than giving them to the chickens after they've pecked the skin. Yes, and my beans. They've completely crushed my beans. They're crushing my soul at the same time. So this is good. So we're gonna get started. While we're at it, we've decided to take away the compost bin, the pallets that we were using to enclose the compost bins. And the reason we decided to do that is because we've decided we don't need them. We can just make piles, just piles of stuff. The chickens scratch it all up anyway, and it doesn't really stay where I put it. So we might as well just have a couple of piles over here next to the brush pile. And the pallets sort of, they come into the place where we're trying to walk. It's hard to walk between, here, I'll show you. It's hard to walk between the compost bin and the tomatoes when there's a fence here. So let me show you. So you can see where our posts have been, this line, this is where our fence has been. And it's really hard to fit in here to do stuff in the tomatoes. And if we put it out a little bit, then it's going to be really hard with these compost bins. Now, these pallets seemed like a good idea. They're free and fairly sturdy, but they've become pretty broken and rickety and rotted here. And so we're just going to take them out. And then once they're out, we can just have some piles here. Under the apple tree will be free and clear for maybe more brush, because I like to have brush piles to attract lizards and snakes. So that's what we're going to do over here first. So of course, this is the way it goes. You start one project, and then you realize there's another project that needs to be done before that project can be completed. Isn't that always the way? So that's what we're doing here now. little red tomato in here. I'm like, oh look, a nice red tomato, and then it's all pecked. It's all pecked by the chickens. They do it to the green ones. Here's one that's green that they've, I don't know if you can see that they've pecked. It's very, very, very frustrating, which is why we're doing this. Bug. Well, this morning we need to finish the gate for the new fence that we built yesterday. So gate building, and we also need to brew beer. We also need to make pickles, but I don't think that's going to happen until the holiday, July 4th. We have so many cucumbers. Isn't that lovely? We can make pickles. So the fence is up, but we need to put in a gate to be able to get in the chickens. We moved the gate. The gate used to be over here in the center, and now we're going to put it over here where the compost bins used to be. So Tom says it's easier to do on a corner like this. So, you know, we don't really know how to do any of this. We're just doing it on the fly. My dad is an expert woodworker, of course, but Tom and I are just learning how to do all this stuff, and honestly, it mostly falls to Tom. Squirrels or birds, I'm not sure which. So anyway, that's the plan for today. I've just been spending some time this morning checking over everything and making sure everything looks okay. There have been a lot of half-eaten tomatoes that the chickens had gotten into, which is kind of a bummer. And the beans, let me show you the beans. They've sort of trampled on the beans, but hopefully they'll rally. So I've spent some time going around and looking at everything. Peppers, there was one blossom end rot pepper, which is a bummer, especially on a hybrid, which I thought would be resistant for that. But I guess not. And I've reseeded a bunch of basil and dill and cilantro and, you know, just the usual stuff in the morning. I've kind of given up on tying the tomatoes because they're enormous. They're enormous, they're getting out of control, it's the jungle, but you know, I kind of like that actually. I don't mind it so much. So I think I'm just gonna sort of let them do their thing at this point. And I actually think the tomatoes on the shadier side of the garden look better than the ones on the sunnier side of the garden. So that's kind of an interesting experiment that will continue throughout the season. Now, we're getting the last of the blueberries and the huckleberries, and there's strawberries continuing. Peaches are almost done, plums are done. Figs are starting. Gosh, I haven't shown you the figs. So we have a different kind of fig than most people. We have something called panache, which is striped. And last year we didn't get any crop at all, and I think it's because I pruned it at the wrong time. Live and learn, but look at it this year. Aren't they beautiful? They're really beautiful figs. And they're very tasty. So we get those in August, September, probably closer to September. That's where the gate will be, right here. Going in, and I'm just going to do the freeform compost pile for the chickens. Okay, so gate building, beer making, pickle making, all that stuff's got to happen. I'm almost done with painting the house. I have just the kitchen left to go, so that's pretty exciting to have that done. And gosh, I guess that's it. This year was the first year that I successfully grew celery, and I think it's because I kept it in this very shady, protected corner. And then I harvested it and used it in stew, you know, like soup, like the Trinity carrots, onion, celery. And some of them I pulled all the way out, and some of them I just cut off to see what would happen at the root, and they regrew. 3 of these regrew, which is pretty exciting. I didn't know celery would do that. So I'm excited to get more celery, and I think this little planter might become a permanent celery pot. Of course, I got this other thing growing in it, which I can't remember what it's called. It's a flower, Plectranthus. Because it likes the shade too, and it gets these little purple flowers. It's a pretty leaf. It's a pretty plant. Anyway, so I'm gonna keep going with celery here. This is cool. I don't really use celery to just eat out of hand, but we use it a lot in soup. So this is gate building. Do you need help? Okay. So gate building's happening in here, and beer making's happening out here. Now we've got in this side part to the gate. The gate, Tom's building the gate right now. So there's this side part covered with chicken wire. So, and it's pounded into the ground so it stays, and attached to the fence over here. So, and then the gate will go here. So we're not too concerned with predators during the day. We do get coyotes. Every so often. They tend to come in the early morning, and what they've always done before is jumped through this fence, and I think they did it over here. So with this mesh fence, unless they get incredibly smart and come over here, although I don't know why they would jump into a bush. It seems to be most creatures prefer to jump into a free space. Anyway, if the coyote jumps in that side, then he's got chickens for a meal. But usually he would come before we even let the chickens out. So this doesn't need to be predator proof for nighttime. The coop is predator proof for nighttime, and that's where they are at night. It's just, it's not an enclosure to keep things out necessarily. It's an enclosure to keep the chickens in. Yeah, so all we have left is the gate. We're not exactly sure how we're going to secure the gate with like a latch, or I don't know. And Tom got special hinges, so the gate will open outwards towards this back corner, and it's a special hinge so that it opens very wide. So I'm excited to get that done. More brewing. Tom's starting to build things to make towers, and he'll be building more as the summer months go by, to make this more easily used. But anyway, lots of cucumbers. Look at this. This is a nymph of a leaf-footed bug. Okay, that's the last you're going to see of it, because I'm going to smush it. These are some beautiful peppers. Carmen is the name of the variety. They're big. They're going to get nice and red and blocky. They're going to be roasting peppers. And this one is also Carmen, but they're smaller. And then, I don't remember what this one is. I'd have to look. There's a bunch on there too. Just about to open up. Wonder if I could put a time lapse on this thing. The gate is in. It's made of redwood, 2x2s, right?
Yep.
And these hinges, swing it, let it swing open. It swings open. So we're gonna figure out some sort of rope lasso or something to attach it up here, which is great. First, I think we're gonna fiddle with this post and make it a little different. Looks great, Tom. This is our temporary solution until we get a proper cleat. But I think now I can let out the chickens and see how they like their new enclosure. So let's... Oh, the only thing is about this, Tom, is that when I'm in there with them... So the only thing about this is when I'm in there with them, I can't close it.
Right.
So they might come out.
Well...
What could I do to... Well, you guys have only been in here for a day, but you've been very calm. Would you like to try coming out and seeing what you think of this new fence? Let's see. Are you guys gonna come out? There you go.